No, I wouldn't say I'm much of a globetrotter. Going to foreign countries is like stepping through a political minefield, in all honesty. The television is repeating a phrase spoken by Richard Fleming MP a few years ago, with every nasal-voiced newscaster in England speaking of him in scorn. A harmless statement back then, but now Richard Fleming MP is the new Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs. So, as he walks to the Foreign Office on his first day of work, he is chased by microphones on sticks, like crucifixes at a witch trial. Little does he know, he soon will be more than a globetrotter. After all, we are watching him. No comment, I'm very sorry, I have no comment at the moment, thank you, he says as he shuffles down the street, feeling several boom mics brushing his reddened face. This isn't the first time he's had to deal with the press, and he knows the spotty-faced and caffeinated gazes of the paparazzi will now be a daily occurrence. He ignores them as much as he can, as though dealing with school bullies. He closes his eyes, pretends they aren't there, and they still don't leave him alone. He continues to repeat his phrase like a chore, until something inside him suddenly snaps. He stops in place and turns around to face the cameras, getting smacked in the face by one of the boom poles as he does so. Actually, you know what? I do have a comment. Just because I stated visiting other countries is like a political minefield does not mean I'm incapable of navigating it. And the comment about not being a globetrotter is because I am a man who very much focuses on work, and at that time work did not require a lot of travel. I am very excited about my new position, and intend to improve our country's global standing to the best of my ability. As he speaks, he notices a relaxing silence, the only noise being the shutters of cameras, and so he continues to let his mouth run. Now that some trotting is in my job description, I'll be able to go out and find some truffles to share with the United Kingdom. He unleashes a smile at his own genius. The press aren't laughing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I am trotting late already and must get on with my day. Thank you very much. He turns his back on the cameras and walks on, still feeling the lenses burning into the back of his skull, and the paparazzi buzzing around his head like flies. As Richard walks into the Foreign Office, he's greeted by PR manager Judy. Judy is the sort of woman who purposely leaves sugar out of your tea, even if you ask for it. She is a deplorable person. Here he is, the man of the hour, or should I say 10 minutes past the hour. The nag of the short, plump woman reminds Richard too much of his mother, and he feels his insides jump up. Did you bring your little flags? Little flags? For the minesweeping. Judy also likes to make jokes. They are never appreciated, or even particularly good, as Richard will come to learn. Very funny. Have you got any sort of damage control going, or were you just writing jokes for the past hour? Because the press are already on me like a fucking rash. Swearing in front of a woman that reminds him so much of his mother feels odd to him. It feels powerful, but at the same time embarrassing. Wrong, somehow. You're off globetrotting. Already? I've only just gotten through the bloody door. Where am I going? I haven't even had my tetanus shots yet. PM's orders. Apparently you're heading to America to apologise to the president. Something about calling him a gibbon that just got out of a sunbed back when he was running for leadership. Bad move, that. Well, I didn't expect him to win, did I? Nobody did. He sighs and rubs his forehead, pushing his twitching eye back in. Do I have time for a cup of tea, at least? Milk, 2 sugars? I'll get you one while you give your address to the department. Address? What am I, the Queen? I'm just going to go in there and say, good job, everyone, carry on. Well, whatever you've got to say, go in there and say it. Everyone's waiting for you in the Locarno suite, just through there. As Richard walks up to the door, Palmerston, the Foreign Office cat, crosses his path. Of course, Palmerston is a black cat. Richard is not usually a man to believe in omens, and he is sure Palmerston is a lovely creature, but he still doesn't appreciate it. He walks around the cat, which circles around him once more to ensure its point is made. He enters the room to be greeted by the entire department of the Foreign Office sat down in anticipation, their gleaming faces and brushed hair beaming at him. Richard thinks they all look a bit pathetic, like out-of-date vacuum cleaners that have been polished to look new, and tries to work out which of the people among them won't be licking his backside for the duration of his office. He spots the spectacled grimace of a young, scraggly-haired man, who seems to have just rolled out of bed, and doesn't seem to really care about anything this morning. Richard likes him already. Good job, everyone. Glad to see you could all make it to work today. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure I'll get to know you all once I've finished globetrotting. Carry on. Before he even begins, Richard has finished. His wife often complains about a similar thing, but Richard doesn't care. Like all things in life, he just wants it to be over with. He leaves faster than he entered, accidentally opening the door on the cat's tail. It shrieks and runs away, and Richard wonders if he should do the same. Judy hands Richard a tea, and upon the very first sip of the tepid liquid, he can tell there's something missing. Sometimes Judy doesn't add the milk, either. A truly deplorable person. "So, the States?" Judy says in one of the highest pitches Richard has ever heard. "Can't I just apologise over the phone?" he asks, politely swallowing the tea. He thinks about spitting it on Judy's mug of a face, but decides against it. "That wouldn't be very trotty, would it?" "Trotty?" "Yes. By the time you're done in this office, you're going to be the trottiest trotter that ever trotted." She leads him down the corridor. "The press will say, 'God, he was trotty.'" "Great, I can see the headlines now. Richard Fleming MP has the trots." She answers with a wry smile. "So, States?" "Might as well take me to a zoo instead. See the gibbons. At least they'll be better conversationalists." Now that's the sort of thing you need to avoid saying. "As elective representative of the people, I have to say what the British public are thinking, and the public think he's a twat." "Mr. President!" Richard shouts as he steps off the plane, summoning up the widest shit-eating grin he can muster. The cameras are watching. As are we. Some blink and flash, while others keep their one unblinking eye staring at him without end, scrutinizing Richard's every movement and nose scrunch. "How wonderful it is to see you. It's a pleasure, a real pleasure." The President's freshly bleached teeth shine brighter than the camera flashes as he speaks. He grasps Richard's hand and shakes it with a violence that speaks more than anything he could possibly say. Not on camera, anyway. "Always a pleasure to meet a Brit. What we have with you guys is special. We share a sense of humour." Richard realises he has stopped smiling, and quickly laughs at the President's response. "That's right," he says. "And I assure you anything I may have said about the President in the past was merely political banter. Just a pre-wrestling match roast, though you won't catch either of us in spandex." The President laughs. "I love this guy. He's going to do a great job. No doubt, with this guy in charge of the Foreign Office, there'll be plenty more banter between our two great, great countries." For a reason Richard cannot discern, the two are still shaking hands. In each second of the President's grip, he feels the talons of America's bald eagle sinking deeper into his skin. He overthinks the metaphor. Britain in the iron grip of its younger, more successful brother. The President squeezes tighter on each great, a favourite word in his vocabulary, until Richard wonders if he is even going to have a hand to shake with by the end of the day. He strains out another laugh, to hide a wince. "Well, I'm sure the President and I have got lots to discuss in private, so if you'll excuse us, we'll be going somewhere quiet to have a special conversation." Judy clears her throat. Actually, Richard, we should probably be getting on. There's lots more trotting to do." Richard is taken aback for a moment. He leans over to Judy, making sure to maintain a smile for the cameras, and whispers, "What? We just got here. Where are we going?" "Oh, it's not far, just up the road, really." By up the road, Judy is speaking figuratively. Where Richard is about to go is up, and is certainly not far in comparison to other places, but there are no roads. You see, it is about time for Richard to meet who is really in charge of the globe he has been trotting. "I'll explain on the way, just get back on the plane." Richard awkwardly walks backwards up the steps of the private jet, waving and smiling all the way as he trips and fumbles his way back inside. In a way, he is relieved to be leaving so soon, though he's confused in equal parts. As he takes his seat, he's sure to make his confusion known. Well, what was the point in that? "Just a cover story, I'm afraid. The media need to know you're doing something. That and the sky is clearer. It doesn't rain as much over here." "The sky is clearer? What is that, bad poetry?" "I think I read that on a fortune cookie once." "Oh, you are funny, Richard." Her retort sounds and means the exact opposite of what she says. She doesn't find him funny at all. He's just another sarky politician with enough charisma to fumble his way into office. Like us, she watches ministers rotate on a regular basis and has grown tired of her wasted efforts to be polite and friendly to them. After all, she never gets it in return. That is why she takes pride in the small victories, such as fetching teas without milk or sugar, coffees that are secretly decaffeinated, or vegan sausage rolls. She fights the system with her mildly irritating deeds. Deplorable, but immensely entertaining. The plane has taken off at this point, but Richard notices it is going quite a bit faster this time. It seems to be tilted upwards too, more vertical. The inside of the cabin feels like it's at a permanent Dutch angle, making him feel like he is in The Shining. Any moment now, he can imagine a river of America's finest oil will come bursting down the aisle. "What's going on? Aren't we at altitude yet?" he asks, finally respecting the blinking red seatbelt sign above his head. "I said we were going up." "Up? What do you mean up? Don't tell me someone's fastened 100 balloons to the plane. Is this a joke? The plane goes faster, even more vertical, until Richard feels like he's going to spew up that awful tea. He never wanted to taste it again, but now he fears he might. He grips onto the armrests hard as he feels his feet swelling, and pushes himself back against his seat to make sure he's not going to fall out of it. Settle down, Richard. You're hysterical. Stop fidgeting. Now she really sounds like his mother. Settle down? Nobody told me we were in an Apollo fucking spacecraft. Don't be silly. It's Virgin Galactic. Richard is lightheaded. He's not sure if it's the altitude, or the sudden realization he is about to be taken off his little globe. No, it's definitely that last one. Virgin Galactic, he says once to himself, quietly. Virgin Galactic? Oh no, this is all a bit too Galaxy Quest for me. Take us down now. See, you're hysterical. I'm telling you there's nothing to worry about. I've done this hundreds of times before. Well, not literally, but I said now! But it's too late. The plane roars as it breaks through the atmosphere and into zero gravity, where it begins to slowly come to a halt. Like a piece of driftwood, it floats in the dark waters of space, and out of his window Richard can see nothing but stars and the light of the earth beneath him. His mouth is agape. Speechless for the first time since the start of the day, when he left his house without saying goodbye to his wife. Judy hands him a bath bag, and he reminds himself never to ask her for any kind of beverage again. At least with milk or sugar, it would have tasted better on the way back up. Judy knows this, of course. Small victories. Right, any minute now, she says. Use the gas. It'll make you feel better. As Richard uses the bag to wipe the regurgitated tea off the corners of his mouth, he remains silent, too wrapped up within himself to speak. He grabs the mask that is now dangling in front of his face and inhales. His mind begins to feel like an astronaut trapped inside the body of a middle-aged man, trapped inside a marriage, trapped inside a poisonous career, trapped inside a spacecraft he thought was an airplane, trapped next to the carbon copy of a mother that only he could love, trapped outside the atmosphere of his tiny globe. Then his mind is trapped asleep, the gas lifting him out of consciousness and into a silent slumber. As always, we have done our best to create a suitable environment for a meeting aboard our ship. A room that we custom tailor to the cultural norms of the abductee. This particular room is based on the lounge of an old English house. There is a red chaise longue on which Richard is sprawled out, a bookcase in every corner, and a large fireplace which fills the room with a virtual heat and the comforting smell of cooked bacon. There are also digestive biscuits and a mug of tea, milk, 2 sugars, just as Richard likes it, much to Judy's dismay. When Richard awakens, we are already in front of him. His movements contradict ours. We smile, he frowns. We open our arms in greeting, he folds himself up and cowers away. Naturally, we are used to this. Who are you? He starts with the obvious question as he stares at us wide-eyed. We appreciate that he didn't ask us what we are, as abductees often do. His language also is not nearly as colourful as we expected. In his mind, though, we can see the full breadth of the language he wants to use, but he keeps it contained within for the moment. As good a place to start as any, Judy remarks, currently letting several biscuits soak in Richard's mug. I knew you weren't human. Oh, I'm human, she says as she passes the mug to him. The soggy digestives have turned the liquid into a dark brown mud, once again undrinkable. Absolutely deplorable. Extremely entertaining. I'm just used to this. They seem to like ministers here. So, what's the deal? Anal probing? Brainwashing? Cloning? We see you know your science fiction alphabet. No, we're simply bored. I see. And this is fun, is it? Kidnapping foreign ministers on their first bloody day? Scaring me half to death with a flight courtesy of Virgin Galactic? I mean, couldn't somebody have told me about this? No, not at all. The threat to global security would be far too high, Judy says whilst fiddling with the settings on the fireplace. It seems she is seeking out another small victory. Now the room smells a bit like burnt toast. Richard jerks himself upright in his chair, lines of anger beginning to rupture into wrinkles on his brow. I'm supposed to believe that I couldn't know about this meeting, but PR from hell Judy is allowed to go around knowing about alien life? Come off it, love. You can't even make a cup of fucking tea. Now why am I here and what do you want? I'm not exactly Agent Mulder. Get the Minister of Defence up here instead. He has been here. Several times. To set terms. He is boring. And you are not. To answer your question, we've simply brought you here to say... Hello? He places a hand over his mouth and sighs. He's silent for a moment, but we can see all the responses he is contemplating in his head. They experiment with several outlandish words, his synapses for swearing and similes firing off a million signals. Finally, he concedes, shaking his head as he falls back into the chair with his arms by his side. "Hello. Great to meet you, but can we do this another time?" "You really aren't much of a globetrotter," we respond, giggling to ourselves. "Or a politician," Judy says under her breath. "No, I'm not. I'm not much of a spaceman either. Now send me home. I represent my country, not the planet." We are somewhat disappointed. We've done all we can to bring his life some meaning. In a single day, he's gone from a hermit to a globetrotter to an astronaut. We are about as foreign as a foreign minister will ever meet. Somehow we expected him to be grateful. We've experienced this before. People and their unwillingness to change. It's such a shame. Development is fascinating. As you wish, we say, letting out a short sigh. Just know that you've piqued our interest, Richard Fleming MP. We will be watching. Please try to entertain us. "Oh great, so now I'm on reality TV, am I? Well, don't worry, I'll make sure my life is nice and boring. Lots of press conferences and papers and, hey, maybe I'll even do my job." "Do as you please. Goodbye." Richard suddenly realises that Judy has put on a gas mask. There isn't to spare. As the gas pours out of the fireplace, Richard jumps to his feet and quickly falls with a ream of insults spilling out of his lungs. "No, I wouldn't say I'm much of a globetrotter. Going to foreign countries is like stepping through a political minefield, in all honesty." The television is repeating a phrase spoken by Richard Fleming MP a few years ago, with every nasal-voiced newscaster in England speaking of him in scorn. A radio host berates him as his morning alarm switches on. "He turns up to the United States, shakes hands with the president, and then gets back on the plane to London. He barely even has a single trotter on the ground, and he goes straight home." Laughter in a can is opened, followed by a cartoon spring, spilling out of the speaker and splitting Richard's ears as he finally wakes up. They are right, of course. Richard is not much of a globetrotter. But at the same time, they couldn't be more wrong. And the story ends there. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please make sure to comment your favourite character below, leave a like, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And as always, make sure to hit that bell icon, just so that you're always notified when a new video comes out. The production quality on this channel is going to increase from here on out, as I'm going to be making sure that the paragraphs of each story are on the screen as I narrate them, which means you can read along if you want to. We also have Twitter and Facebook, which I will link in the description below. And until next time, in the depths of space, there's always another story to be told.